It's time for victory. We making history. We the new big thing, ain't no mystery. Believe me when I say the big game's on. Better tune in, that new thing about to take off. Ready to face off, look me in the eyes. I'm so game ready that I'm all up in your mind. Ready for the battle, we preparing for the war. Give them just a taste, I swear they want more.
Hot sun, bright light, no time to waste. Tonight's the night. Fast pace, highlight, leave it all on the line. Just the way that you like. Suit it up, and we ready for war. They don't let us in, we kick down the door. See the look in our eyes, only thing on our minds is win, win, win for the love of football. Win, win, win for the love of football. Win, win, win for the love of football. Win, win, win for the love of football.
Unstoppable, see we ready more than ever now. Get ready for the big game, it's time to get it now. What they talking about? I can't hear it through the crowd. I can hear them cheering loud. They know we warriors, waiting for the light to flash. Put us on the center stage. Winning is the only thing that keep running through my brain. No pain, no gain. See this runs in our veins, make them remember our name. I love this game.
Hot sun, bright light, no time to waste. Tonight's the night. Fast pace, highlight, leave it all on the line. Just the way that you like. Suit it up, and we ready for war. They don't let us in, we kick down the door. See the look in our eyes, only thing on our minds is win, win, win for the love of football. Win, win, win for the love.
All right, here we are. We are a few days removed from the UFL home opener in St. Louis. I was there. I was at the tailgate. I was walking the premises. I was talking to all the great fans out there, and hopefully some of you fans have tuned in this morning. Great to see you guys again. We've got a lot to talk about, specifically about what went on during that game, what continues to go on behind the scenes with the UFL. We're going to talk a little bit about what the future holds for the UFL as an entity. What does that look like? Where does that go coming here into the future? We've got a lot to discuss. We've got a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into it. First things first, Fuel Sports Network, Gateway City Sports. Go over to gatewaycitysports.com. You can watch this feed live. Check out all the great shows over on the Fuel Sports Network and a lot of the great stuff that's going on with Gateway City Sports. So let's go ahead and let's start talking about my experience at the tailgate in St. Louis at the Dome. It was pretty good. I didn't really have any bad experiences necessarily. Now, obviously, I had heard some things. There have been some stuff that has been brought to my attention as to bad behavior and things that go on typically at tailgates. It's unfortunate, but this is kind of the atmosphere that you get at tailgating, right? You know, you get a little bit of people that maybe are a little rowdy. Maybe they like to have too many adult beverages earlier in the day. You know, those things have a tendency to happen. Obviously it needs to be up to the individual that they handle their business on their own, but that's their own business. You know, they're adults. They could do that. And if people get upset about it, well, then they could be upset about it, but it ain't going to change anything. I mean, have you been to a Buffalo tailgate? Have you been to a Green Bay tailgate? You know, I mean, I've been there. I've seen some pretty wild stuff that's gone on. This is an NFL tailgates. Okay. This is like, you know, the big boys, right? We're not talking about, you know, spring football here. We're talking about the NFL. And I've seen some pretty wild things that have gone on at tailgates that I won't discuss in a family format. But one of the things that we're going to get into, and we're going to talk about this right now, and that's the Battlehawks win. What a gutsy win for the boys, coming out 27-24 on top. Last second field goal was there. Section 140 cheering them on. I got a little rowdy from time to time, seeing some things, watching some stuff. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Everybody around me was fantastic and great. We just really enjoyed it. Their fans were rabid for the Battlehawks. They had a lot of fun. And this win, I cannot encompass how big of a deal this was for the fan base, that it was to kind of ingrain into people that this team is actually trying to win, versus what the Rams did the last few years that they were here, when we knew that they were phoning it in. We could tell that they weren't really necessarily trying to win games per se by putting the best team on the field. I don't want to say anything bad about the players. I want to emphasize that clearly. This is not an indication on the players. Whenever I talk about the Rams, they didn't, as an organization, field the best team. They knew what they were doing. They intended to do it the way they did it. And that's why, they were on the way out the door. But we don't need to discuss that. This is about the Battlehawks. This is about St. Louis football on this particular show. And this win was a big, important core component to success for the UFL going forward. Now, that being said, there was a lot of things in this game that I personally watched, that I personally saw, Section 140, that I was very concerned about. There were certain play calls, certain things that were done during the game I had watched, I had seen. Again, this is a team that's been reorganized. There's new players. Yeah, we have the same quarterback. Yeah, we've got certain particular players. Darius Shepard coming back. Hakeem Butler coming back. Certain players that are there that have been with the team and the organization and the UFL in question. So there's familiarity there, but there's a lot of players that are coming in that are having to learn the new play calling schemes, the new programs, everything. This takes time. You can't just do it over a very short period of time. And we're also talking about the level of play. And I don't think that people really understand generally. I don't want to insult anybody watching the show or listening to the show right now that sits there and says, well, you don't know anything about football. The problem with it is that we watch the NFL every Sunday and Thursday and, Monday. And do they do it on Fridays? I don't even know anymore if they do it on Fridays, but they're literally 2 days a week they don't play football. We've been accustomed to that level of play. And so for us, it's so normal to see what we see on an NFL Sunday or a Monday or whatever, to see that level of play. And then when we go and we watch UFL games or USFL games or any other format, we have a tendency to go, oh, well, it should be like this. This is I'm used to this because of the NFL level of play. I cannot stress how much different that is. We're not even talking about a different, step. We're talking about a different stratosphere. We're talking about outer space versus on the ground. We're not even talking about the same level of play here. And I would even stress that there was been with some NFL players that have left the NFL, have gone to the CFL, or have gone from CFL to the NFL, that they have even said, wow, man, these guys up in the CFL, they could really go. They could really play. Now, are they to that level of what the NFL expects and what we see every week out of the NFL? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But it's still football, and it's entertaining as hell. Let's just be realistic. I was cheering, I was booing, I was doing the whole thing. I was there with everybody else in Section 140, having a blast. And again, getting down, I was getting nervous. Man, that fourth quarter, things just really weren't kind of coalescing. They weren't coming together. And it was really, hard for me to deal with. It was hard for me to watch. And, when we come down and we're, it's just one score after another, it's just teams going back and forth there, coming down into the fourth quarter. And we get to this situation where here we are, 24-24, they're running down the field. And we had a couple of great big plays, got down there, got situated, stopped the clock, kicked the game-winning field goal. And as time expired, Battlehawks win. Everybody's excited. It's a good night for everyone. Long drive for me to go back home, but still, irregardless, it was a great night for everybody and had a great time. The other thing that we do need to kind of discuss is the amount of people that were in the dome. So it was said by the UFL and by other outlets that there was over 40,000 fans that were in the dome. Now, I want to stress, I was there. I would agree that potentially 40,000 tickets were sold, over 40,000 tickets were sold, but I have a kind of hard time believing that there was actually over 40,000 people in the dome at the time. Where I was sitting in section 140, obviously I couldn't see really all that well behind me in the 400 section up above, but I could see the 400 section across on the other side and into the corners. Down the lower levels, as the game progressed, we got into the second quarter, those numbers did pick up. People finally started to kind of come into the dome and find their seats. Some people were going to the bathroom. Some people were getting food or drinks or whatever. So, that took time to kind of get there. And as the game went on, the fans got louder and they got rowdier. Now, that might have been due to adult beverages. I'm not really sure. I'm not going to sit here and criticize anybody. But it did get really rowdy there towards the end. Now, I want to stress, and the boys talked about this on the X-Fan show last night. So if you have not watched the X-Fan show, go back over to either the Facebook page, the Twitter account, you can even go to the website, watch it live if you want to, Roku, Amazon Fire Stick. You watch that show. Go back and check out that show because they talked a lot about this in last night's show. And they covered a lot of this stuff, but there's some finer points that I want to kind of touch on with this, statistic. The amount of fans that these other UFL teams have been putting into stadiums is grossly disappointing. I'm seeing statistics from these other teams that's saying they were less than 10,000, 8,000, 9,000, somewhere in that range for a couple of these things. I know the Memphis Showboats was one of them that was really low. And Daryl Johnston had come out and said, this is not really where we expect to be. This is not really what we're wanting. And that they're planning out to 2025 to say, hey, how can we better this? What can we do to change this, this kind of situation that we've got here? Dirty over on the X-Fan show symbolizes it best whenever he had said St. Louis is an anomaly, because St. Louis is an anomaly. It's a freak situation. It's a perfect storm, a perfect scenario, if you will, of fans that are disgruntled with the NFL, that are disgruntled because of what Stan Kroenke did, and that are mad, they're hurt, they're upset. I'm not a psychologist. I don't even play one on TV. But any of the fans that have followed me for the multiple years that I covered this over on Gateway City Sports, multiple articles, multiple investigations, the involvement that I had with the NFL and what they did in St. Louis, I have an insider's knowledge a lot to what has gone on during this time frame. And I want to stress that. So there are a lot of fans that are still really upset about what happened and what occurred with the Rams, with the NFL, with Stan Kroenke. Now, Dre says that they opened the league during March Madness, and he's absolutely correct. This is one of the issues that we've seen with spring football. It's during March Madness. It's during this kind of heavy period of other sports that sometimes other individuals that are more interested in alternative leagues, they might not be all that interested in either watching or consuming this product. The statistic that came out just yesterday, I believe, was that they estimated there was over 100,000 people in downtown St. Louis for soccer, baseball, and the Battlehawks. The Battlehawks, so they claim, pulled more of an attendance number than the Cardinals. Now, I saw the Cardinal Stadium. It was pretty empty, so that was, I think even they said, was the lowest total attendance number that the Cardinals have had since 2020-ish, somewhere in there. It's so, if you think about that, you go, oh, wow, a spring football league that's not a failure once, not a failure twice, a failure 3 times. And you got to look at it and go, oh, wow, this is a culmination of multiple leagues. The AAF failed. The USFL failed twice. The XFL has failed once back in the year 2000, 2001, and then 2.0 because of COVID and everything else. And then they came back in 2023. So this is the third go. What is going on with that? What does that look like? How does that kind of circulate? How does that kind of compass what we're kind of trying to get across here? And what I'm trying to get across here with 40,000 fans, because St. Louis is an anomaly. It's a freak scenario that has worked out perfectly. The TV numbers were grossly down from what was expected. Now, they were up from last year. And again, there's a lot of variables that are in play here. We don't have to necessarily go too deep down a rabbit hole. This is only a 30-minute show, and we're already 16 minutes in. So this is something we need to be very careful about how we, phrase this. St. Louis loves football, has always loved football. We've had football without short periods of time. This is what people need to understand. This is the longest that St. Louis has gone without football since before 1960. We only did 7 years without an NFL team between the Cardinals leaving in 88 till the Rams got here in 95. This is the longest time frame that St. Louis fans have gone without a professional football team in the city of St. Louis. This is a big thing that I don't think that people really kind of like put it underneath their hat and go, wow, man, that's mind-boggling to think that St. Louis has not done without professional football for any length of period of time. But it's true. But if you go back and you say, well, if you constitute the UFL or the XFL or whatever format as professional football, I don't. I'm sorry, UFL fans. I'm sorry, XFL fans. I don't constitute it as professional football. I see it more as semi-pro. That's my opinion. I'm entitled to that. But this is kind of where we go. We're going to jump over into the comment section real quick. We've had a bunch of comments blowing up here as of late. And I want to kind of touch on a couple of these things because, there's some good points being made. And Kenneth says, while they may never do it due to heat and health risks, I think we could have better success positioning the schedule after the draft and let it run in the summer. I don't disagree. Here's the problem. The issue is that you got to look at people's lives. They need a break from pro sports. And so for football to have that break between February and August when the NFL starts, that's when everybody's doing everything. The summer's starting to kick in. People are going on vacations. People are going and doing stuff. They're outside. They're going to kids' ball games, kids' soccer games. People have families. They have lives. There's a lot of stuff going on. I don't disagree, Kenneth. I think you're really making a good point. That would up the television viewership numbers, but I think you would have a downturn in physical attendance, and that's what's hurting the league necessarily. He goes on to say that he doesn't think the CFL viewership would take much away from us, and late spring, summer would have competing with many other sports broadcasts again. Agreed. But I do see there being a downtick because of coming into the summer. People need a break. And again, I mean, has anybody really priced NFL tickets? Have you looked at how much they are as of late? They are grossly overpriced. Have been for a long, long time. And this is one of the things that I would, stress again. Will says late schedule announcement due to the merger stadium lease in Rice in Michigan was 2 weeks late compared to the other teams. It's a really good point from the insider, Mr. Will Freeman, right there. That's a very, very good assessment of the situation, a late schedule announcement. There was a lot of late announcements with the UFL that got into this situation. We need to jump over real quick, and we need to take this banner off, and we need to jump to the next segment. That's this. Does the UFL have staying power? Because that's what this all leads into. Does it have the staying power to stay relevant and stay exciting, engage fans, and not go bankrupt? We have to remember something that's very, very important here, and that's this. Last season, the XFL claimed that they lost $60 million. Now, everybody says, and Dirty's pointed this out to me, and he's said it in numerous broadcasts on the X-Fan show, B-Hawk Live, other things that they have done. But he made a very, very excellent point. Again, I'm quoting Dirty a lot in this, but you'd think, man, the man's smart. I mean, he really does have a good pulse on what goes on. And the thing is that when you start talking about St. Louis being an anomaly and putting 40,000 fans in the dome, and other facilities aren't putting hardly anybody in there, and the TV numbers are low, the numbers aren't really coalescing the way that you would hope. And if the XFL lost $60 million, in which we have a tendency to think that it was much greater than that, but the statement was made that the Battlehawks carried the league in 2023 with their high attendance levels, because we had over average like 32,000 or something like that on every single game in 2023. And so if you're sitting there saying, oh, well, the Battlehawks carried the league, actually they didn't, because if they carried the league, then the league would have broke even and not lost money. So they didn't actually carry the league. Did they do well? Yeah. Did they make up for a lot of the losses? Sure. Did they carry the league? Absolutely not. And if anyone thinks that this year is going to be any different, and that just because the Battlehawks are going to do on average, let's just say, just bring the number down a little bit from 40, because the excitement level is going to dwindle a little bit. It might pick up if they, make the playoffs and, potentially the championship game that's going to be played in St. Louis at the Dome. But let's average it at 35,000. If we say 35K for the rest of the season, we just average that out, that's still a few thousand more, but that's not going to carry this league. That's not even going to help the amount of losses based off of what the other teams aren't doing. They are not putting butts in seats. The viewership numbers aren't there. The dollars aren't there. That means this league is going to be hemorrhaging money if they aren't already by this point. Mr. Scott, how you doing, my friend? Met Mr. Scott at the tailgate. Had a lovely conversation. Great dude. Thank you for joining today, Scott. Appreciate it. If they do not get more butts in the seats, it's not going to work. And absolutely. The NFL, why it works is because it is a conglomerate. It is a multi-headed monster. There's no head to cut off of the NFL because there's so much money from so many different entities that's swirling this whirlpool of money that is the NFL. Teams can fail. A quarter of the league can fail, and they will still make billions. They just released their yearly report that they've made more money this last year than they've ever made in the history of the NFL, that they raised their debt ceiling by $1 billion. And so you got to start asking the question, where's the money? Because Redbird Capital is an investment group. When they bought into the XFL and they're in the USFL, they bought in. They are a type of entity that buys these brands, that buys these entities. They repackage them, they streamline them, they get them to a profitable margin, and then they resell them or they gut them and sell individual pieces unilaterally across the board. That's what these companies do. That's how they make their billions. But it's not looking like that's going to be the case. It's looking to be more of a scenario to where this league is going to be out of money very, very soon, if not already in the red grossly. I think that unfortunately, because of the other markets and the way things are trending, this is my opinion. Don't jump on me, but I'm looking at the numbers, guys. I'm looking at the real hard numbers. You could be a fan all you want. You could root for it all you want. I'm a season ticket holder. I'm supporting the product. I'm going to the games. I'll be watching it. But the truth is that St. Louis in and itself cannot carry this league. They cannot. It shows proof in the pudding from the numbers of 2023 where they lost, so they say, $60 million. That's the problem here. Scott even follows it up. The writing's on the wall if the other cities don't step up. UFL's in trouble. They're already in trouble, guys. It's already headed there. You know, in a private conversation that I had with Mr. Dirty just the other day, we were discussing this particular subject matter and our concerns over the TV numbers and how they looked. It's not only that you're not putting butts in seats into physical areas. We got to remember, this is almost like old school NFL. This is why the Rams moved out of LA into St. Louis in 1995. Number one, they were getting a taxpayer-funded facility for $0. They were getting all these freebies. It was one of the most lucrative deals for several years. I think 5 years in the NFL. It was one of the top, if not the top, revenue-generating facility in the league for 5 to 7 years. And I think even after that, for like the next few years, it was still one of the top 15 revenue generating facilities in the league. Fans still sold out the dome, even though the team was really bad from 1995, 96, 97, 98, until we had the 99 to about 2004 run, to where for 4 years they were bad. And then for another 4 years, they were top of the line, if not pretty good. But then after that, stunk out the joint. But then yet it's all about fan support, right? But see, again, they can fail because they have the money. The NFL has the backing. And the UFL does not have that. If they had billionaire owners that were dumping money into the league and that they had marketing teams that were marketing it properly and doing it from the beginning, this is something that we could talk about. Scott, the plan from the beginning with the Rams is that they were going to go back to LA. We just didn't realize it at the time. Yeah, Scott and you and me just briefly had talked about it there at the tailgate. We kind of talked about that. We talked a little bit about the former Big Red St. Louis Cardinals. We talked about the Rams a little bit. And that's one of the conversations that came up. And so one of the things that I want to point out is this article that I had pulled up from Pro Football News. And it's titled that the Battlehawks prove that St. Louis deserves an NFL franchise. That kind of leads us on to this next thing, but it also kind of stays into the UFL conversation, because in the UFL conversation, if the UFL as a league does not make it, well, then this is what we're talking about. Here's the attendance numbers in St. Louis via St. Louis Sports Central over on X. Over 100,000 fans, 39,000, 40,000, and 22,500. St. Louis City, man, they've got it going on. They know what they're doing over there. But looking at this, if you just say this is the headline here, that St. Louis could force the NFL's hand. Listen, St. Louis had the NFL right where they wanted them during the lawsuit, and they let them off the hook. They had them dead to rights. They had them up over a barrel. They had them high-ended. They had them by the ankles. They could have done whatever they wanted. They let them off because the politicians and the powers that be in the city of St. Louis said, we'd rather have the millions. We'd rather have the money. I don't want to get too deep into the woods on this, but if you look at Las Vegas and what they did in the state of Nevada to land the Raiders, $750 to $780 million, whatever it was, of public money. I mean, why wouldn't an NFL team make that deal? It makes all the sense in the world that they would make that deal. You look at other things up in Minnesota where they gave a ton of public money. I can't even remember the number. It was somewhere close to 500 or some odd million that they gave up there. Well, the Minnesota Vikings just recently bought all of that debt. Well, you got to ask yourself the question, well, why do teams want to do that? Why does that make any sense? Well, you got to think from a billionaire's perspective, because free money is free money. That means it's interest free. It's not costing you anything. So I could take said money and I could turn said money and invest it into something else, and I can make that margin. And so those millions or billions of dollars, I'm making that margin back multiple times fold. And so I'm making money on that money. And remember, it's your money. It's taxpayer money. And for them, it's free money. This is why when Bill Bidwell started this avalanche back in the 80s of asking for public money, and then the whole thing coalesced and started happening, you look at Salt Lake City. Right now, they've given out 2 different $850 million public money fund deals to land a Major League Baseball franchise and an NHL franchise. I've been telling people this the last 5 years. Salt Lake City is making some moves. Nobody wanted to listen to me that, it's Salt Lake City. It's out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of Utah. Who cares? It's Salt Lake City. I knew things that other people didn't know. And I talked to people within those realms that knew what was going on. These things are slow. They take time. And I'm telling you right now that if you're not giving public money, you're not getting stadiums if you're a smaller market. St. Louis is the 23rd largest market in the television market. It's bigger than Pittsburgh. It's bigger than Philadelphia. It's bigger than Green Bay. It's bigger than a majority of these markets, bigger than San Diego, the metro, and the television market in question. But yet, St. Louis doesn't have a football team. But we just showed that we could support the UFL, and that team is a question. We're going in over OT, and I usually don't do this. But we're going to carry on the show for a few minutes longer because I think this is something that really needs to get talked into. This really needs to get discussed. I typically don't do this, but I want to because this is a really important deal. And we're probably going to end up doing a special edition on this particular subject matter because there's a lot of people really asking a lot of questions about this particular thing. Robert says, have faith that they will make it. And I hear plan for next year that they just got Fox to say, okay, well, hey, if they did, that's great, but they need more money. They are cash poor. They have no liquidity. They're carrying more debt than they have equity. The NFL may carry $12.5 billion in debt or $13 billion of debt, but they have $30, $40 billion of equity. They have so much equity, it's not even funny. Go back to the public money. Think about this for a second. In St. Louis, let's say they okayed a deal for $750 million of public money that they were going to make available. Let's say they just took the $550 million that the city of St. Louis has from the lawsuit and said, you know what? That's sitting in an account that's making us interest. It's making us money. Let's go ahead and let's allocate that to either upgrade the dome. Remember in 2000 and what was it? 16? It was the 16s when they left. So it was 2013, 2012 when they came out with the renderings to upgrade the dome. And talked about glass panels and a retractable roof or maybe even a glass panel roof. And the amount of money it would take to do that was approximately somewhere around the $700 to $800 million mark. I think with, obviously inflation and the way everything's gone and potential other issues that you may see, you're probably looking somewhere closer to $1 billion too. But everybody says, well, that's how much the rendering of the stadium cost. That was then. This is now. That was multiple years ago. People forget that this is 2024 now. We are nearly a decade removed from when the Rams left, not even from whenever they started planning this stuff. Those numbers have grossly increased. So if you talk about the tax dollars, it's free money that's given from you to the government, that they're sitting on your money, that then they're turning around and giving it to these billionaires interest-free to build these facilities and build the infrastructure so that way you can go to football games and pay tickets. And guess what you do when you pay those ticket prices? You pay taxes. Guess what else you do when you buy the hot dog and the beer there at the game? You pay taxes. What are you doing when you're paying for parking? What do you think that they do with that money whenever they get all that money for parking? They pay taxes. This is not just an NFL issue. This is a governmental issue. This is something that I typically don't go down this rabbit hole because I don't like talking about politics when it comes to a lot of this stuff. But this is a main key factor because you hear this from politicians all the time. It's an economic driver. We have to have these facilities because it's an economic driver. What they're not telling you, folks, is that they are using it to leverage you to get more money. And then when they get more money, then they're taxing you when you use said thing that you've already paid for with your tax money. Let's think about it this way. When they host a Taylor Swift concert or Morgan Wallen or whomever comes in and does a big concert there, and they have, 50, 60,000 people that show up to these concerts to watch so-and-so, or they have 60,000 people that show up to watch, some kind of a dirt track event or monster truck event or whatever. Again, the tickets, you guys are paying taxes. The parking, the lots, they pay the taxes. When you go to eat at the facilities around, you're paying taxes. All the hotels you're staying at, you're paying tax levies that have been levied upon you by your representatives in order to pay for this thing. And then they tax you out the ass on the other end in order to get more. So why wouldn't the NFL owners do it? Why wouldn't they want to? It makes all the sense in the world. It's completely logical. You use other people's money at no cost to you to make billions more. This is why I'm proud of the people of Kansas City who said, hell no, we ain't going to give you millions of dollars. We're not going to okay any more taxes. You get enough money as it is. The Hunt family's worth $24.5 billion anyways. Foot your own damn stadium. You want to stay in Kansas City? You want to go across the state line and go into Kansas because you want to get more tax money breaks? Then go right ahead, Hunt family. You ain't worth a damn anyway. You never were. You were the ones that wanted this market all to yourself, and you poisoned the well and allowed everything to happen the way you did. And so, yeah, I'm getting hot about it. Yeah, I'm going to be hot about it. Do I support the Chiefs because it's Missouri's team? You bet your bottom damn dollar I do. Do I love watching Patrick Mahomes? He is a sight to behold. The things I see that man do is absolutely phenomenal. It's mind-blowing. And if anybody sits there and says, well, I'm not going to watch the Kansas City Chiefs because I hate the Hunt family. Okay, fine. But don't do it to the players because of that. The truth is that the NFL has bamboozled the fan base for generations. They've talked to you about family. They've talked to you about how they want to take care of you and how they want to do the right thing. They don't want to do the right thing. They want to do what's best for them and what's best for business. And the fact that they made billions more last year than they ever have in the history of the NFL in making money, and they raised their debt ceiling another $1 billion. Why would they do that if they don't already know that they're going to position themselves to win? This is why I go back to, does the NFL have staying power, or the UFL have staying power? That's the point that I want to drive home. The reality is that everybody says, well, it's good. And that goes back to this article. Again, I will bring up this article to prove a point. Can the St. Louis force the NFL's hand? Force them for what? What are we forcing? Can I ask that question? What is it that St. Louis can do to get the NFL. Okay, yeah, we won $700 and whatever million, and after lawyer fees, St. Louis ended up with about $550 million. Whatever. Okay, who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Because what are they going to do with that money? They haven't done a damn thing with it right now. The politicians don't know whether to crap or wine their watch. I'll keep it PG. At least I've tried to for the most part. Oops. As Dirty would say, oops. But this is what we're getting at, guys. When you talk about we want the NFL, we want them back, we need them. We're going to use the UFL to leverage the NFL. The NFL, if the NFL wanted to be here, they'd be here tomorrow in St. Louis. Okay? They'd be here tomorrow. So we could talk about how Michael Bidwell stood up for the city of St. Louis. You can't do this to these fans again, because if you do this, you are nuking that market for generations to come. It will be unsupportable in St. Louis. If you do this, you have ruined football. And that's why the NFL tried to push the Raiders into St. Louis, but they couldn't force Mark Davis's hand. The conversation was had. Everybody talked about it. It was well known within multiple factors. The Rams themselves were pushing it. But at the time, this Vegas deal hadn't been done. Enter Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones negotiated that deal. That shows you how much disdain and hatred that he has for St. Louis, because he could have helped push the Raiders into St. Louis. He didn't. He pushed them to Vegas. Why? 700 some odd, almost $800 million of public funds says why. So if you think that the NFL wants to be in St. Louis, they'll be in St. Louis if the public money's there, if the freebies are there, they'll be there for sure. Absolutely, no doubt, no question. But this is where we're at. And whenever I hear fans sit there and go, well, we're going to use the UFL as leverage. How? With what? With what money? With what enticement does the NFL have to move a multi-billion-dollar franchise to the city of St. Louis? Yes, it's the 23rd market. Yes, I get all that. I've preached all this stuff to the end of my days. But what I've come to learn, and this is where I have had this conversation within Fuel Sports Network, within Gateway City, and I have said this multiple times. Where is the benefit for the NFL? Because the NFL doesn't give a damn about the fans. They don't care about the cities. They care about money. That's it. Full stop. So where's the money going to come from? Because it sure ain't going to come from city leaders in the city of St. Louis. They don't even know what they're doing Monday through Friday half the time. They can't manage a homeless situation. They can't manage the crime situation. They can't manage anything. The only thing they can manage to do is show up whenever a red light on a camera's on for a television network. That's the only thing they could do. They don't know what they're doing up there. Now, the county's got it figured out for the most part. That's where all the businesses moved and all the money moved, was out into the county and even out further. And you're starting to see that moving out 6440 and out 70. And you see it moving out towards like the Wentzville area and things like that. You know, for years you saw it moving down to Jeffco, right? But then now we've started to see it move west. Why is that? Well, it's because the city of St. Louis has bled everybody dry on taxes and it's killed businesses in downtown area. And obviously the crime going through the roof and everything else. Why would anybody want to live there? This is why you continuously see the population dwindling inside of the city of St. Louis, the homeless population rising at an extreme pace, and the crime level skyrocketing through the roof because of reduction in police force, reduction in police funds, reduction in emergency services. And what other services do people have in those areas when the gas stations are closing and the grocery stores are closing? And the only thing you've got to travel, who knows how far? Again, look at every NFL team and where they're going and what they're doing. They are moving out of city cores. Dallas did it years ago whenever they built out there in Arlington. They're in Arlington. They're not even in Dallas. They're in Arlington. Then you look at the Bears. They're building out in, coincidentally, Arlington Heights, outside of the city core. In Chicago, they don't even want to be in the city because of the crime and the taxes and everything else. You look at San Francisco, and they built that wonderful Levi Stadium out there in San Francisco. Where'd they build it? Out in the county. You look at every single one of these. This is what they're doing. This is where they're headed. And the teams that haven't done it are already starting to position themselves to do it. The Saints, the Panthers, the Jaguars. The Rams didn't even build in LA. They built in Inglewood. So you want to build a stadium? Let's say we do it. Okay. Let's say everybody's on board. We okay the tax money and we do it. Let's say we use that $550 million from that settlement and we allocate that. And we say, okay, this is going to be for infrastructure and it's going to be to help build that facility. Could an NFL team play in the dome for 2-3 years? Absolutely. The dome could be retrofitted and made to work for a couple of years. Then after that, you're going to have to build a new facility. Where are you going to build it? Well, it's got to be out in the county. It's got to be further out. It's got to be hopefully closer to Lambert Airport. So that way you have access to get in and out relatively quickly, and especially for players. You're going to have hotels. You're going to have other things. Again, you have to do it along the lines, and baseball's been doing this, like Ballpark Village. You're going to have to be able to set this in a way that works for everybody, because whenever I go to football games, where do you think I want to stay? I want to stay at a hotel. I like to stay at nice hotels because if I'm going to go, I want to stay someplace nice. I want to stay someplace where I could eat on site, eat at the facility. I could stay at the facility. I don't really have to go anywhere. It's always, hey, if they have a movie theater in the building, even better. But I'm kind of old school. I like those kind of old school buildings. Preferably my preference in downtown St. Louis is I love staying at the Magnolia in downtown because I like that old school vibe, like 20s, 30s, that kind of thing. I like that. It's just the feel that I get. But you're going to have to do stuff like that. And you're going to have to build the infrastructure. And if you start building all these, you can go out 6440 and you go out there to Boone's Crossing out there where they're building all those strip malls and all that stuff. And you can have the Army Corps of Engineers come out there and you can have them design in that floodplain area all the drain tile and everything that you would need to build a 70,000 seat facility out there that not only would house an NFL team and their practice facilities, but would have hotels, casinos, restaurants, shopping facilities, everything that you could imagine, full parking, tailgating section, everything. Could you imagine it? Because I could see it because other teams have already done it. Smaller markets than St. Louis have done this. So why can't St. Louis get their act together? Where's the interest? I love the UFL. I love the Battlehawks. I'm supporting it. I'm a season ticket holder. Again, I reiterate. If the angle is, and especially from that PFN article, that St. Louis has leverage against the NFL because of the what? Because you put 40,000 butts in seats for a UFL game. We've been doing this for the last year. I've heard the rumors. I've talked to people within the NFL. They've all noticed it. They've seen it. But has it changed anything really? Because for years, the NFL always had LA, right? They always had LA to dangle over the heads of all these cities and municipalities. They always had that leverage point that they could use in order to benefit their argument of why they need more public money to stay where they're at. It's the same thing that the Chiefs are doing in Kansas City right now today. So I asked the question, is the NFL really that important? Is this really what people are supporting the UFL for? Are they supporting the UFL because they love the product? For me, I support the UFL because I love football. I love the game. I always have. The NFL disenfranchised me. I watched the NFL for over 30 years. They cut me off as knees as a fan. I stopped becoming a fan. That's why I became an investigative reporter on the subject matter. That's why I can detach myself from the game and report on these things and in a way that I feel is even keeled. It does not have a bias one way or another, because I've looked at the business aspect of what they do and how they operate, and I don't allow my fandom to get in the way. The one thing I've seen at the UFL in St. Louis, for some people, it is about football. It's about football. It's about the love of the game. It's about that aspect of it. Another faction is people who, love the atmosphere of football, love the camaraderie of football, right? They love all that. But you know what? Unfortunately, a large majority of these people, they just love to have a good time. And there's a lot of these people too that just hate Stan Kroenke and they hate the NFL. And they want to twist the knife in some way. They want to make a point and prove a point that, that this is a football town. I want to close on this thought. And it's a very important, pointed thought. If it was really about the Battlehawks and about supporting the UFL in St. Louis, why do we continue to have vulgarity as far as I'll just be honest, F Kroenke chants, F Kroenke flags? I'm not saying that people don't have a right to be upset. I'm not saying that. But if it's really about your love of the sport, who cares anymore? It was nearly a decade ago. That ship has sailed. It has moved on. I know people today that still have hatred for Bill Bidwell. The man's been dead for a few years now. He's been dead. And they still have despising hatred for him. Vitriol. You could light a fire with it. The amount of hatred that is towards that man. How long will this hatred go on for Stan Kroenke? Stan Kroenke did what Stan Kroenke does. He's an investment real estate person. That's what he does. That's his mantra. You want to hate him, hate him. I don't hate the players. I don't even necessarily hate the game. But what I hate is what they did, what they knowingly did. And instead of saying, you know what, we just want out, instead of doing that, they lied. They kicked the body on the way out the door. That's what people are mad about. That's what I'm mad about. Rightfully so. But all of that said, if you're supporting the UFL and you're supporting the Battlehawks, support them for the right reasons. Don't support them because of your hatred and your vitriol for Stan Kroenke. It doesn't do anything for anybody. It really doesn't. It doesn't do anything for the league. It doesn't help them. It might help that personal, feeling that people have about Stan Kroenke and what he did along with the NFL in the city of St. Louis, and kicking the body on the way out the door when they didn't have to, making the lies when they didn't have to make the lies, writing the memorandums and everything else that they did, putting out the false stories. They didn't have to do any of that. And I understand your anger because I feel the same way. But if you're going to support this league, support the league whole hog. If not, and you're only using it to be able to, as I said before from this article, leverage the league to do what? To get another NFL team for them to do what? Leave again? If the NFL wants to come back, I'm more than happy to welcome the NFL back into the city of St. Louis and into this market. But from this commentator's opinion, and I think that I'm justified in this opinion, if you want to come back, NFL, you come back on our terms, not on yours. And I'm going to look right into the video scope to tell you this. What I said before, if you want to come back, you come back on our terms. We're not giving you no more freebies. We're not going to belly out for you. And by God, don't you send us another has-been, hack, worthless owner that can't hack it in their own market. Don't you send us another piece of garbage company, organization that can't make it. We want organizations and people who want to be here. We don't want a bunch of has-been, reject, nobody, nothing owners that don't know anything but to count beans. That's all they know, and push pencils. They have no people skills. They have no communicative skills. I look at the Hunt family and I say the same thing. You're worth $24.5 billion. Your team has been to the Super Bowl multiple times in the last few years. You have had success. You have made money. You can build this stadium if you want to and not even make a dent in your wall, not even make a scratch. But yet you're going to the people of Kansas City and the state of Missouri to ask for free money to build you another facility. You cheap piece of trash. Yeah, I'll say it. I'll say it because it's true. The Hunt family, you're cheap. You're hot garbage. Because if you're going to go and ask for millions, if not billions of public dollars when you're worth $24.5 billion, give me a break. Because if you really cared about Kansas City and you really cared about the state of Missouri, you say, hey, I'm going to make an investment. That's how much I love Kansas City. That's how much I love the state of Missouri. I'm going to make an investment. And I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And that's the same thing that I say to anybody that wants to come to St. Louis. If you want to come to St. Louis, put your money where your mouth is. Invest in the city. Invest in the market. Because that's the only way you're ever going to really make it. Look at what the Battlehawks started to do. Now, obviously, this iteration has kind of fallen flat because, unfortunately, again, opinion-based, because I have the right, nay, I have the responsibility to question these entities and how they do business and what they do. And I could definitely tell you this unequivocally, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there's a majority of these people that work in that FO, front office, for those of them in the lay term, that are just padding their resume for their next job. They don't care nothing about this league. They don't care about the fan base. They don't care about the team. They don't care. They're just padding their resume for their next job and hoping that they get a job within the NFL or hoping they get a job within the WWE or maybe someone's personal assistant. I'm not going to name names. But the truth of the matter is this. You want to be in St. Louis? Great. We'll welcome you with open arms. We'll support you. We'll have you. But you better invest. You better do it. Because if you don't, then we're out. We've got the ability. We've got the fan base. We got the excitement. We've got it. Guys, this has been an amazing show. This has been so much fun. I love talking about this. I love getting excited about these things because it's something that I'm really passionate about, as you know. It's something I really, really love. And we did a double show today. We didn't just do a single show. We went a full hour. Guys, usually we do 30 minutes. We did a full hour today. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, here's the other thing, too, I'd like to add as we head our way on out is that I want to thank the fans that showed up to the Battlehawks game this weekend, fans that showed up to the St. Louis City SC game this weekend, that showed up to the Cardinals game. and showed your amazing fandom, because that's something that really is important to me. And it's something I'm really happy about, that you showed that you brought it. It showed your true colors as a real fan and as supportive. Some great people. And you know what? Here's to hoping. Here's to hoping that the Battlehawks make it to the playoffs, which I have to add to that.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Yeah. Let's talk about it. What are we going to make it? Are we going to do it? I don't know. Let's just wait and see. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate every minute you spent with me today. We're kicking butt. We're taking names. The show's growing by leaps and bounds every single episode that we put out. I want to thank you for being here with me today. Thank you so much. See you guys, 9 a.m. Wednesday next week. Maybe we do another double show. I don't know. We'll see. See you guys later. Take care.